The night I found out, I was standing in our garage looking for a wrench. That's the stupidest part of the whole thing. 17 years of marriage, 2 kids in high school, a house we'd spent 3 summers renovating, and it all came apart because I went looking for a half-inch wrench at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. My wife, I'll call her my wife, because that's what she still was that night, had left her phone on the workbench. She did that sometimes, came out to grab something from the chest freezer and set it down without thinking. The screen lit up when I brushed past it. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. Honestly, the last thing on my mind was that my wife of 17 years was doing anything other than watching her show upstairs. But the name on that screen stopped me cold. It was a guy I knew, not a close friend, more of an acquaintance. He'd been my wife's coworker at the property management firm where she'd worked for the past 4 years. I'd met him twice, maybe 3 times at company holiday parties. Forgettable guy, medium height, that kind of loud laugh that fills a room whether you want it to or not. His name was Curtis. The preview of the message was short, just 8 words. But those 8 words rearranged everything I thought I knew about my life. Last night was everything. Miss you already. I stood there in the garage for a long time. The fluorescent light above me buzzed. Outside, I could hear the neighbor's dog barking at something. My hands weren't shaking yet. That came later. Right then, I just felt very, very still. Like the moment before a car accident when your brain registers what's about to happen, but your body hasn't caught up. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I went inside. I told my wife I couldn't find the wrench. She said it was probably in the hall closet. I said thanks. I went to bed, lay next to her in the dark, and stared at the ceiling until 4 a.m. Here's what you need to understand about me before I tell you the rest. I'm not a guy who acts on impulse. Never have been. I was a project manager for a commercial construction company for 11 years. My whole job was to think 3 steps ahead, anticipate problems before they happened, and never ever make a move until I understood the full picture. When something went wrong on a job site, the worst thing you could do was react immediately. You gathered information first, you mapped out the situation, then you acted. So that's what I did. Over the next 3 weeks, I said nothing. I acted normal. I had dinner with my wife every evening, helped my son with his college applications on the weekends, drove my daughter to volleyball practice on Thursdays. I laughed at the right moments. I asked about her day. I was, by every external measure, the same husband I had always been. But I was also paying attention in ways I never had before. Her phone stayed face down at dinner now. She'd started going to the gym on Wednesday evenings, something she'd never done before. Small stuff. The kind of changes you wouldn't notice if you weren't looking, but once you were looking, you couldn't unsee. I hired a private investigator. I'm not ashamed of that. I needed documentation, not suspicion. He confirmed things within 10 days. Curtis, a hotel about 20 minutes from our house, Wednesday evenings, had been going on for at least 8 months. 8 months. While I was managing job sites and helping with college applications and renovating the back bathroom. 8 months. The investigator gave me photos, time-stamped, location data. I won't go into the details because they don't matter, and frankly, I don't like thinking about them. What mattered was that I had proof, solid, documented, undeniable proof. Now I had to decide what to do with it. I want to be clear about something. The revenge piece. I know some people are going to read this and judge me for it. That's fine. But I want you to understand that what I did wasn't about hurting Curtis out of pure anger. It was about not letting him walk away from the destruction of my family without any consequences at all. He knew I existed. He'd shaken my hand at a Christmas party. He'd looked me in the eyes and then gone home and kept doing what he was doing. That mattered to me. Curtis, it turned out, had been trying to land a contract with the city for the past year. His property management firm was bidding on the administration of a large municipal housing portfolio, a contract worth several $1 million annually. My wife, in her role at the firm, had been helping him prepare the proposal documents. I found this out because she mentioned it casually at dinner one night, about 6 weeks before the bid deadline. She was proud of the work, said it could be a major win for the firm. I'm a project manager. I know people in commercial real estate and municipal contracting. Not a lot of people, but the right people. I made a few calls, not to sabotage the bid. I wasn't going to do anything illegal or even anything unethical in a professional sense. But I did make sure that certain people on the evaluation committee were aware of some public record information about Curtis's firm that might not have been prominently featured in his proposal. Past code violations on properties they managed, a lawsuit from 3 years ago, settled, but the details were available. Standard due diligence stuff that a thorough committee would find anyway. I also, around this time, consulted with a divorce attorney. What I learned surprised me. In our state, adultery is relevant in divorce proceedings, particularly in asset division. Not always determinative, but relevant. My attorney told me that documentation, the kind I had, was valuable. She told me to keep paying attention, keep documenting, and when the time came, we'd be in a strong position. I filed when my daughter's volleyball season ended. I didn't want that disrupted for her. My son was away at his first semester of college by then, which made the timing slightly better for him, though there's never really a good time for this kind of thing. The night before I filed, I sat down with my wife after dinner, and I put the photos on the table between us. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Not Ben, anyway. I just put them there and watched her face. She went through 5 different expressions in about 4 seconds. Shock. Then the beginning of denial. Then recognition that denial was useless. Then something that looked like relief. And then finally something that looked almost like grief. For what? I'm still not entirely sure. For the marriage, maybe. For the version of herself she'd been presenting to me for the past 8 months. She said, "How long have you known?" I said, "Long enough." She started to explain. I told her I didn't want the explanation. I told her I'd already spoken to an attorney. I told her to make arrangements to stay somewhere else while we figured out next steps. She cried. I won't pretend that didn't affect me. 17 years. There were real things in that marriage, real good years, before whatever had gone wrong. But I also remembered those 8 words on her phone screen. Last night was everything. And I thought about all the Tuesday dinners and Thursday drives to volleyball practice and everything I'd done while she was somewhere else. And the crying didn't change my mind. She went to stay with her sister. Here's where things got complicated. Curtis's bid failed. I don't know exactly how much my phone calls contributed to that. The firm had real weaknesses in their proposal that may have sunk it on their own. But it failed. Curtis, who had apparently been counting on that contract to stabilize some financial issues in the firm, was not in a good position afterward. He blamed my wife. Apparently, in the wreckage of everything, he decided that she had somehow tipped me off about the bid. She hadn't. I'd figured that part out on my own. But he didn't believe her. Their relationship, whatever it had been, ended in a particularly ugly way. I know this because my daughter told me, and she knew because my wife told her, during one of those tearful late-night phone calls that became a regular occurrence for a few months. My daughter was 17. She shouldn't have been hearing any of that. That part. Putting that weight on a 17-year-old. I blamed my wife for more than almost anything else. Now, the part of this story that I've gone back and forth on whether to include. About 4 months after I filed, I got a call from Curtis's adult son. His name is Brandon, he was in his mid-20s, and he had somehow gotten my number. He wanted to meet. I almost said no. Then I thought about it, and I said yes, partly out of curiosity and partly because I'm the kind of person who thinks you should have information before you make decisions. We met at a diner near my office. Brandon was a decent-looking kid, clearly uncomfortable, clearly rehearsed. He told me that his father's situation had gotten very bad. Financial stress, the fallout from my wife leaving him, his mother, Curtis's ex-wife. They'd been divorced for years, was now using everything against him in their ongoing custody dispute over Brandon's younger half-siblings. Brandon asked me if I would consider not pursuing the financial claims against Curtis in our divorce proceedings. I want to be precise here. My attorney had found that Curtis had, in some communications with my wife, potentially exposed himself to a tortious interference claim. Basically, that he had knowingly damaged my marriage and possibly my financial situation. It was not a slam-dunk case, and my attorney had been clear it would be expensive to pursue. But it was leverage. Brandon was asking me to let it go. I sat with that for a minute. I thought about what I wanted to say. I thought about the photos on my kitchen table. I thought about my daughter at 17 carrying information no teenager should carry. I thought about 8 months of Wednesday evenings. I told Brandon that what happened between his father and me was between his father and me, that I appreciated him coming, that it clearly cost him something to be there, and that he seemed like a decent person who was trying to protect his family. I told him I understood that. Then I told him I'd understood that. Then I told him I'd think about it. I did think about it. For about 2 weeks. My attorney thought I was being naive. My older brother, who I told everything to, thought I was being naive. Maybe they were right. In the end, I didn't pursue the claim. Not because Brandon asked me to, not because I forgave Curtis. I want to be clear about that, because I think forgiveness is a word people throw around too casually when what they really mean is, I'd like this to stop being uncomfortable. I didn't forgive him. I just decided that spending more time, money, and mental energy on a man who had already taken enough of all three wasn't something I was willing to do. That's different from forgiveness. That's just math. The divorce finalized about 14 months after I filed. The asset division was, given the documentation my attorney had, considerably more favorable to me than a standard split. My wife kept her car and some savings. I kept the house. Given that I'd been the primary earner for the last several years and the house was in my name before we married, this was appropriate. My attorney was pleased. I was just tired. My son came home from his first year of college and we had a long conversation on the back porch one evening. He was angry, not at me or not primarily at me, but at the situation, at the disruption, at the fact that the family he'd left in August wasn't the family he came back to in May. That anger was legitimate, and I didn't try to talk him out of it. I just let him have it. My daughter was harder. She'd been in the house for all of it. She'd been the one fielding calls from her mother at midnight. She'd been watching me try to hold everything together while also watching me take her world apart. Teenagers are smart. They understand that both things can be true, that someone can be wronged and still be the one causing disruption. She knew I was right. She also knew everything was different now, and that was my doing, at least in part. That's a complicated thing to sit with. I don't pretend it isn't. A year out from the finalization, here's where things stand. I'm still in the house. My daughter finished her senior year and is starting college in the fall, same school as her brother, which was her choice and not something I had any hand in. But I'll admit it made me feel something I can't quite name when she told me. My son is doing well, has a girlfriend his mother and I both apparently like, which is one of those surreal post-divorce experiences nobody prepares you for, agreeing with your ex-wife about your kid's girlfriend. My ex-wife, is in an apartment across town. We communicate about the kids, and we do it civilly because we have to, and because we're both adults who understand that our children didn't do anything wrong. It is not warm. It is not friendly. But it is functional, and at this point in my life, I'll take functional. Curtis, as far as I know, is working at a smaller firm in the same industry. I don't follow his situation, and I don't particularly care to. Brandon called me once more, about 6 months after our diner meeting, just to say thank you. He didn't need to do that. I told him as much. He said he knew, but he wanted to anyway. I appreciated it more than I told him. Here's the thing about being on the other side of something like this. People want a clean ending. They want you to say, I'm healed, I'm better, I'm thriving. The worst thing that happened to me turned out to be the best thing that happened to me. Television has trained us to expect that arc. The truth is messier than that. I have good weeks and bad weeks. The house feels different now, quieter in ways that are sometimes peaceful and sometimes just empty. I'm not sure I trust my own judgment about people the way I used to, and I'm not sure when or whether that comes back. But I didn't fall apart. I didn't let the anger make me into someone I didn't want to be. I protected my kids as much as it was possible to protect them. I handled things with as much deliberateness and clarity as I could manage under circumstances that could have broken me sideways. That's not a triumphant ending, but it's a real one, and most mornings that's enough. I've thought a lot about what I would tell someone going through what I went through. Not the logistics, the attorney, the documentation, the investigator. Anyone can figure that part out. What I mean is the interior stuff. The part nobody really talks about. Here's what I kept coming back to. Every single thing that happened in this story was a direct result of choices. Not fate, not bad luck. Choices made by real people who understood at some level what they were doing and did it anyway. My wife chose to start something with Curtis. She chose to keep it going for 8 months. She chose to let me drive our daughter to practice and help our son with college applications while she was lying to my face every single evening. Those were not accidents. They were decisions made repeatedly over a long stretch of time. Curtis chose to shake my hand at a Christmas party and look me in the eye. He chose to pursue a relationship with a married woman. He chose to build his professional ambitions, that contract, that firm, on a foundation that had cracks in it he thought nobody would notice. Every shortcut he took in his career, every code violation, every settled lawsuit, those weren't bad luck either. They were the accumulated weight of how he operated. And I made choices too. I chose to be patient when everything in me wanted to react. I chose to gather information instead of throwing plates. I chose to protect my kids' routines even when it cost me something to sit across from my wife at dinner and act normal. I chose, in the end, not to pursue Curtis legally, not out of weakness, but because I decided that my energy was worth more than that. The thing about living with integrity, and I don't mean that in some greeting card way, I mean the actual daily practice of it, is that it compounds. The same way debt compounds, the same way bad habits compound. Every time I made the harder, quieter choice instead of the explosive one, it built something. Not a dramatic victory. Not a clean triumph. Just a version of myself I could look at afterward without flinching. Brandon calling me was the moment I understood that most clearly. Here was a young man, early 20s, watching his father's life come apart, coming to me hat in hand because he didn't have any other options. He didn't owe me that humility. He could have been angry, could have blamed me, could have made it about something other than what it was. Instead, he showed up. That took something. I thought about that for a long time. About what it costs a person to ask for something when they have no leverage, about what it says about someone that they do it anyway. And I thought, his father made choices that led to this moment, but Brandon is making different ones. He's going to be all right. My son is going to be all right too. My daughter, even probably my ex-wife, though that's her work to do, not mine. What doesn't survive bad choices is trust. Once it's gone, you don't get it back through apology or explanation or time. You only rebuild it through a different pattern of behavior over a long enough period with people who are paying attention. That's slow work. It's the slowest work there is. I'm still doing it. Rebuilding my own sense of what I know about people, what I'm willing to risk, what a good life actually looks like when you strip away the version you thought you were living. Some mornings that feels like loss. Other mornings it feels like the most honest thing I've ever done. Either way, I'm the one choosing it. And that, more than anything else, is what I needed to get back.